Pedal builders are hoarders. If anyone tells you otherwise, then they're lying. It kind of comes with the job. More often than not, builders are not necessarily buying components to fit an already completed design. More likely, they are buying components that are cool when they see them and when the price is right. And then often those components can spark new ideas and new pedals. And that's sort of how this new series of pedals from Great Eastern Effects came about. Circuits that are born from David's stash of unused components that don't necessarily fit in his main line of pedals. So here we have it, the OC201 preamp from Great Eastern Effects, the first of the Obsolete Devices. Behind Great Eastern's main line of pedals is very clear, very uniform, and has a very distinct style. There's a few up on the shelf there if you can see them. The Obsolete Devices, however, are an obvious step away from that, and it gives David not only a chance to use up some of those unused components that he's been stashing, but also gives him an opportunity to flex his pedal building muscles in different ways, with more classic circuits, but still with a twist. If you're enjoying this video so far, please go down and hit that like button and subscribe. You have no idea how much it helps me out. Carry on making these videos, so yeah, please do that, and let's carry on with the video. The OC201 preamp, for example, is a take on a classic 60s style silicon fuzz face. Music to my ears. What makes this one special though is that it uses two very early and very, very low gain silicon OC201 transistors. And it's that low gain aspect that I want to touch on. This gives the pedal a huge range of boost, drive, preamp tones, and only really gets to that classic fuzz face tone when you start to crank the fuzz and the level together. Hence, I guess why he's called it a preamp rather than a fuzz. This is probably the most dynamic fuzz face style pedal I've ever played. It's got so much air and life around the tone that's quite something to experience. It doesn't quite get to that squashy, explosive fuzz face tone that some of us love. While that is a cool sound, this pedal is quite literally a breath of fresh air in that sense. I think that kind of means that this is the pedal for people who've struggled with fuzz faces in the past. This high dynamic range also means that this pedal cleans up just beautifully on your guitar's volume knob. circuit, I guess David could have gone one of two ways. On the one hand, he could have gone full on vintage correct NOS components and that artisan point-to-point wiring. Now that is a cool approach and can create some really beautiful pedals, but that's not actually the vibe with the Obsolete Devices. Those pedals can also cost huge amounts of money. The construction here is more experimental, shall we say, not necessarily vintage correct, using a mixture of modern components, NOS components and full-on vintage components like those OC201s. But rest assured that the construction and the build quality is still superb with this, and the components are still very premium. But truth be told, this approach to the construction of the pedal brings the price down, and that's excellent, arguably with no compromise to tone whatsoever. This pedal, considering the tone and the use of those OC201 transistors, could have been a £300 to £400 pedal if it used that point-to-point hand-wired nature. But instead, these are going to be around £250, much better than if it started with a 3 or a 4, especially when you consider how limited these are going to be. There's going to be about 50 OC201 preamps, so if you're interested, get on the website. All of that is music to my ears, quite literally, because personally I live by the mantra that if it sounds good, then it is good, no matter what it looks like inside or the price of the thing. Some of my favourite fuzzers are those expensive artisan fuzz pedals, but at the same time I also have some favourites that are much more affordable. And for me, the OC201 preamp sits really comfortably in the middle of those two things. It's definitely still not cheap, but it could have been more expensive. And it's absolutely a new favourite of mine.